While thousands of dealerships across America are watching their profits evaporate overnight, you could be positioning yourself to avoid the catastrophic inventory crisis that's forcing many smaller dealers to close their doors for good. The used car market has entered a death spiral that industry insiders have been dreading for years, and the effects are about to hit consumers harder than anyone expected. What if I told you that the same dealership lot that was overflowing with inventory just 3 months ago now sits nearly empty? Not because they're selling cars faster than ever, but because there are literally no affordable used cars left to buy. This isn't just happening at one dealership, it's the beginning of a nationwide shortage that will leave buyers with fewer options and higher prices through 2026. I've spent the last month talking with dealers across 17 states, and the story is the same everywhere. Lots that should hold 70 to 90 vehicles now have 30 to 50 at most. And it's not that they don't want more inventory, they simply can't find it. One dealer in Ohio told me, "I've got the capital to buy 100 more cars tomorrow, but I can't find 10 decent ones at auction this week." This is the new reality of America's used car market. And here's what makes this truly terrifying. It's happening at the same time that sales are slowing down. If you're wondering how a dealership can be selling fewer cars and running out of inventory, stay with me because the answer reveals a fundamental shift in the market that will affect every car buyer for years to come. The truth is, this inventory crisis isn't just about supply chain issues or manufacturing delays. There's a shocking market dynamic happening that's creating a perfect storm where dealers can be simultaneously not busy enough and running out of inventory. What's truly alarming? The cars that traditionally supported the under $5,000 market, the vehicles that helped working families and first-time buyers get reliable transportation, are vanishing from the market completely. And the reason why will change everything you thought you knew about how the used car market actually works. Most industry analysts are missing the real story here. They're focused on new car production numbers and dealer incentives, but they're overlooking a critical shift in consumer behavior that's dismantling the ecosystem that has supplied affordable used cars for decades. The average age of vehicles on American roads has just hit a record 12.5 years, up from 10.8 years a decade ago. This isn't just a statistic, it's a warning sign of a market that's fundamentally changing in ways that threaten the very existence of affordable transportation options. What exactly is happening to America's affordable used car supply, and why are small dealerships facing their worst nightmare even as larger franchise dealerships seem to be weathering the storm? To understand this crisis, we need to look at the hidden connection between new car financing, trade-in behavior, and the ripple effects throughout the entire automotive ecosystem. Let's walk through exactly what's happening at small dealerships across America right now and why it's creating a perfect storm of inventory problems. First, let's look at a typical small used car dealership that specializes in affordable vehicles under $5,000. This is the kind of place that serves working families, first-time buyers, and people who need reliable transportation without the burden of a massive car payment. Just a few months ago, these lots were typically full, holding anywhere from 70 to 90 vehicles depending on the size of the operation. But drive past many of these same dealerships today, and you'll see a very different picture. Lots with just 30 to 50 cars, sometimes even fewer. You might think this is good news. Maybe they're selling cars faster than ever, but the reality is far more concerning. These dealers are facing a nightmare scenario where they're simultaneously not selling enough cars to maintain profitability, and they can't find enough inventory to restock their lots. Here's what's really happening. The affordable used car market is drying up at its source. And to understand why, we need to follow the traditional path of how these vehicles enter the market in the first place. Traditionally, lower-priced used cars come from trade-ins at new car dealerships. When someone buys a new vehicle, they often trade in their older model, which might be a 10 to 15-year-old car with 150,000 plus miles. These trade-ins typically don't stay on the new car lot. They get sent to auction, where smaller dealers buy them, recondition them if needed, and sell them to budget-conscious consumers. But here's where the system is breaking down. New car prices have skyrocketed, with average monthly payments now exceeding $700 to $800. This has created two critical problems. First, new car sales have slowed significantly. When franchise dealers aren't moving new inventory, they're not taking in trade-ins, which means fewer affordable used cars entering the auction pipeline. Second, and perhaps more important, the people who typically own those 10 to 20-year-old vehicles that would become $5,000 cars simply cannot afford to trade up in today's market. Someone driving a paid-off 2005 Honda Accord or 2008 Toyota Camry is looking at going from zero car payment to $700 plus per month if they trade up. In this economy, that's simply not happening. As one dealer put it, the cars that don't have any problems aren't getting traded in. People are running them into the ground instead of taking on massive new car payments. The only older vehicles entering the auction system are often those that have serious problems or have simply died completely, forcing their owners to replace them. This means small dealers are now sifting through hundreds of vehicles at auction to find just a handful that are both affordable and don't require expensive repairs. Let me take you inside a typical dealer auction in 2025, where just 2 years ago a small dealer might have a list of 20 to 30 potential vehicles to bid on. Today they're lucky to find 6 to 7 that meet their criteria. And out of those, they might successfully purchase only 4 to 5 due to competitive bidding. Multiply this across 3 auction visits per week, and they're bringing in maybe 12 to 13 cars, barely enough to replace what they're selling, with no chance to build inventory. One dealer told me, "I'm spending more time at auctions to buy fewer cars, and the quality is worse than I've ever seen." What's particularly troubling is the condition of the vehicles that are available. The cars that do make it to auction in the under $5,000 price range increasingly have serious mechanical issues. Bad transmissions, engine problems, or extensive body damage. Dealers are facing a lose-lose situation. Either pay more for better quality, which pushes prices beyond their target market, or take on vehicles that require substantial reconditioning costs. This brings us to another compounding factor: repair costs. Part shortages continue to affect the automotive industry, with prices for common replacement parts up 22% since 2023. Labor rates at repair facilities have increased even faster, up nearly 30% nationally in the past 2 years. These rising costs make it increasingly difficult for dealers to profitably recondition vehicles with mechanical issues. The math simply doesn't work anymore. A dealer might purchase a higher mileage sedan with mechanical issues for $2,000, but then face $1,500 to $2,000 in repair costs. After accounting for their overhead, they'd need to price that vehicle at $5,000 plus just to make their normal margin, which pushes it out of the affordable category. The result? Many dealers are becoming more selective, only purchasing vehicles that need minimal reconditioning. This further reduces the available inventory in the affordable price range, creating a vicious cycle that's squeezing both dealers and consumers. For small dealerships, this creates an existential threat that goes beyond just a temporary slowdown. Consider these compounding factors. First, most small dealers operate on tight margins and need to maintain a certain volume just to cover overhead costs, typically 45 to 50 cars per month just to break even. With both sales volume and inventory acquisition down, many are struggling to keep the lights on. Second, the annual tax refund season, February through early April, represents the busiest selling period for affordable used car dealers. During this time, customers flush with tax refund money often make their only vehicle purchase of the year. Smart dealers typically double their inventory before tax season, going from 70 to 75 cars to 150 plus vehicles to meet this demand. But with the current inventory crisis, many dealers are looking at having only 50 to 60 cars when tax season hits, missing out on their most profitable sales period of the year. This creates a potential death spiral. Lower sales volume means less operating capital. Less capital means fewer auction purchases. Fewer purchases means less inventory. Less inventory means even lower sales. Eventually, the business becomes unsustainable. The worst part? When dealers do find good inventory, they're often forced to pay more, which either compresses their margins or forces them to raise prices, potentially pricing out their traditional customer base. Let me share a real example that illustrates just how dire this situation has become. Mike, a dealer who's been in the affordable used car business for 22 years in the Midwest, told me that for the first time in his career, he's considering closing his doors. Last tax season, I had 130 vehicles ready for tax time buyers, Mike explained. This year, I'm projecting I'll have maybe 65 at most. That's not enough to cover my overhead during what should be my most profitable period. I'm facing the very real possibility that after 2 decades, I might have to shut down or completely reinvent my business model. Mike's story isn't unique. Industry data shows that since January 2025, over 340 small independent dealerships specializing in affordable vehicles have either closed permanently or shifted to a different business model. That's more closures in 8 months than in the previous 3 years combined. For consumers, this has serious implications. If you're in the market for an affordable used car under $5,000, your options are rapidly shrinking. The vehicles that do remain in this price range are likely to have higher mileage, more problems, or both. Let's put some numbers to this trend. In 2020, the average vehicle in the $3,000 to $5,000 price range had approximately 130,000 miles. By mid-2025, that same price range now typically features vehicles with 165,000 to 180,000 miles, a 35% increase in just 5 years. And it's not just higher mileage. Consumer advocacy groups report that complaints about used vehicle quality in the sub-$5,000 range have increased 48% in the past year alone. Stories of people purchasing vehicles only to discover major mechanical issues within weeks or months have become commonplace. For working families who depend on reliable transportation to get to jobs, school, and medical appointments, this isn't just an inconvenience. It's a potential financial emergency. When affordable transportation options disappear, people are forced into one of 3 bad choices: stretch their budget for a more expensive vehicle, purchase a lower quality vehicle that may require costly repairs, lose mobility, which can threaten employment and access to essential services. Consider the case of Sarah, a single mother of 2 in Atlanta who recently shared her story with us. After her 2006 Nissan finally gave out after 210,000 miles, she visited 6 different used car lots looking for a replacement under $5,000. Every lot had the same story. Either they had nothing in my price range, or the few cars they did have were in terrible condition, Sarah explained. I ended up having to finance a $9,800 vehicle with a $285 monthly payment I can barely afford, but I couldn't risk buying something unreliable and losing my job if it broke down. Sarah's situation is playing out across America, particularly in areas with limited public transportation. For the working poor, a reliable vehicle isn't a luxury. It's a lifeline to economic stability. When that lifeline becomes unaffordable, the consequences ripple throughout their entire financial situation. There's also a geographic dimension to this crisis that's often overlooked. Rural and suburban areas where public transportation is limited or non-existent are being hit hard hardest by the disappearance of affordable used cars. In these communities, vehicle ownership isn't optional. It's essential for accessing employment, healthcare, education, and basic services. A recent study by the Urban Institute found that households without reliable transportation in areas with limited public transit options earn, on average, 30% less than similar households with dependable vehicles. As affordable used cars disappear from the market, this transportation gap threatens to widen existing economic disparities. What makes this situation truly unique is that we're witnessing the collapse of an entire segment of the automotive market, the affordable used car. Unlike previous market disruptions that eventually corrected themselves, this one has structural factors that suggest it may be permanent. The traditional trickle-down model of the used car market relied on a steady stream of new vehicle purchases, creating trade-ins that would eventually become affordable used cars. But with new car prices outpacing wage growth for years, that model is breaking down. Here's the shocking truth that industry insiders are reluctant to admit. The sub-$5,000 used car may be on the verge of extinction. The vehicles that traditionally populated this price range, 15 to 20-year-old domestic sedans and basic transportation, are simply not being replaced in the market. The data confirms this trend. In 2019, approximately 25% of used vehicle sales were under $5,000. By early 2025, that number has dropped to just 8%. Meanwhile, the average age of vehicles on American roads has reached an all-time high of 12.5 years, up from 10.8 years a decade ago. What does this mean? Americans are holding on to their vehicles longer than ever, creating a supply drought in exactly the segment of the market that serves working-class buyers. But there's another factor at play that few are discussing: the changing composition of the vehicle fleet itself. The cars that have traditionally populated the affordable used market, basic sedans, small SUVs, and economy cars, have been disappearing from new car lineups for years as manufacturers shift toward larger, more profitable vehicles. Ford, Chevrolet, and other domestic manufacturers have largely abandoned the sedan market, focusing instead on trucks, SUVs, and crossovers with higher profit margins. These larger vehicles typically command higher prices, both new and used, and they're less likely to filter down to the under $5,000 market due to their higher starting prices and greater maintenance costs. At the same time, vehicle technology has become increasingly complex. Modern vehicles, with their advanced safety systems, infotainment technology, and computerized components, are more expensive to repair when they do experience problems. A simple fender bender that might have cost $800 to repair on a 2005 model might cost $3,000 plus on a 2020 model with multiple sensors and cameras. This increased complexity also means that older vehicles with technological failures become economically unrepairable sooner. When the cost to replace a failing infotainment system or complex transmission exceeds the value of the vehicle, it effectively removes that car from the usable fleet. The electric vehicle transition further complicates this picture. While EVs promise lower maintenance costs over their lifetime, their battery replacement costs create a potential cliff in their resale value as they age. A 10-year-old EV needing a $7,000 to $10,000 battery replacement simply won't be economically viable in the affordable used market. What we're seeing isn't just a temporary market fluctuation, it's a fundamental restructuring of the automotive ecosystem that threatens to eliminate the most affordable transportation options for millions of Americans. For dealers specializing in this market, the implications are stark. Many will need to either move up market to higher-priced inventory, find alternative acquisition sources beyond traditional auctions, develop creative financing options to help customers bridge the affordability gap, or in many cases, close their doors permanently. The dealers who survive will be those who can adapt quickly, finding ways to source inventory directly from consumers through aggressive buying programs, establishing relationships with fleet operators for end-of-cycle vehicles, or developing reconditioning expertise to profitably restore vehicles that other dealers can't handle. Some forward-thinking dealers are already pivoting their business models. We're seeing the emergence of hybrid approaches that combine traditional dealership operations with service-oriented businesses that focus on maintaining and extending the life of existing vehicles. Mark, a dealer in Pennsylvania who previously specialized in $3,000 to $5,000 vehicles, has transformed half his lot into what he calls a vehicle preservation center. He explained, "If people can't afford to replace their older vehicles, they need someone who can help them keep those vehicles running reliably for as long as possible. We've added 3 mechanics and seen our service revenue triple in 18 months. Others are developing innovative financing approaches that account for the new market reality. Some dealers are partnering with credit unions and community organizations to create special financing programs for working families who can demonstrate stable employment but lack the credit history or down payment normally required for auto financing. There's also a growing trend of subscription and rent-to-own models that provide more flexibility than traditional financing while giving customers access to better quality vehicles than they could purchase outright in the current market. What's clear is that the traditional model of the affordable used car dealership is becoming increasingly unviable. The dealers who recognize this shift and adapt accordingly will survive, while those who wait for the market to return to normal are likely to become casualties of this permanent structural change. Remember how we started this video discussing the thousands of dealerships watching their profits evaporate while their lots sit half empty? Now you understand the perfect storm causing this crisis, a combination of skyrocketing new car prices, slowing trade-in activity, and the disappearance of the vehicles that traditionally supported the affordable used car market. While this presents serious challenges for both dealers and consumers, those who understand the changing dynamics can position themselves to navigate this new reality. Consumers looking for affordable transportation should consider acting sooner rather than later if you need a vehicle under $5,000. Being prepared for higher prices or older vehicles than you might have expected. Budgeting for potential repairs as the quality of available inventory in this price range is declining. Exploring alternative transportation options, including ride-sharing or public transit for some trips. Looking beyond traditional dealerships to private sellers, who may offer better value in this market segment. Consider learning basic maintenance skills to extend the life of your current vehicle. Explore car-sharing programs or subscription services that may provide more affordable access to transportation. Research community programs that provide assistance with vehicle purchases for working families. Be extra diligent with pre-purchase inspections, as the quality of available inventory is declining. Consider slightly older electric vehicles that may be facing battery degradation issues but still offer reliable local transportation at a discount. For those currently driving older vehicles that would typically be traded in, this market shift creates an opportunity. Your paid-off older vehicle that runs reliably has never been more valuable as a personal asset. Investing in proper maintenance to extend its useful life may be the most economical transportation decision you can make in this new market reality. For dealers, survival will require adaptation, finding new inventory sources, developing expertise in vehicle reconditioning, or potentially adjusting your business model to focus on slightly higher-priced vehicles where inventory remains more available. Some specific strategies dealers should consider: develop direct-to-consumer purchasing programs that bypass auctions entirely. Establish relationships with fleet and rental companies for end-of-cycle vehicles. Create service-focused business units that help customers maintain their existing vehicles. Explore partnerships with financial institutions to develop innovative financing solutions. Invest in reconditioning capabilities to profitably restore vehicles with issues that other dealers avoid. Consider specializing in specific vehicle types or brands where you can develop deep expertise. Leverage digital marketing to target private sellers directly. Develop relationships with new car dealers to get first access to trade-ins they don't want on their lots. Explore emerging markets like electric vehicle battery conditioning or hybrid system reconditioning. Consider consolidation or partnerships with complementary businesses to achieve economies of scale. The used car market is undergoing a fundamental transformation that few few predicted. The traditional assumption that there would always be affordable used cars available for budget-conscious consumers is proving false, as structural changes in vehicle pricing, ownership patterns, and trade-in behavior disrupt decades of market stability. What we're witnessing isn't just a temporary disruption, it's the potential end of an era in American transportation. The $5,000 used car that has provided entry-level mobility for generations of working-class Americans is becoming an endangered species. This shift has profound implications not just for the automotive industry, but for economic mobility, workforce participation, and social equity across the country. Understanding these changes now gives you the opportunity to prepare before the full effects are felt throughout the market. Whether you're a consumer or a dealer, the time to adapt to this new reality is now, before the affordable used car becomes a relic of the past. If you found this analysis valuable, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming video on the 5 alternative sources for affordable used cars that smart dealers are using to maintain their inventory despite these market challenges. Your financial future may depend on it. Next week, we'll also be examining how this shift is creating unexpected opportunities in adjacent industries, from mobile mechanics to parts remanufacturing, and how forward-thinking entrepreneurs are capitalizing on America's aging vehicle fleet. Stay tuned for that exclusive report that you won't find anywhere else.